Hello friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where we appreciate the knockoff form in knockoff Transformers. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the MPP-10z from Weijiang. For anyone who's unfamiliar with the MPP-10, it is basically a knockoff upscaled version of the Masterpiece Optimus Prime MP10 mold. Not the original Masterpiece Prime, but the updated one that came out a fair bit ago and is largely considered by many to be the definitive Optimus Prime figure. Or at least the definitive G1 Optimus Prime figure. I know I already did a video on MP10, that was a long time ago, and things have kind of progressed since then. Short backstory, the reason I didn't have an MP10 for a really long time to do size comparisons with is because I sold off my MP10 in order to pre-order a different knockoff MP10 that was available on TF Direct. It was basically MP10 only with a really cool cel-shaded paint scheme, and that looked really awesome and I really wanted it, so I was just like, alright, I'll sell off my regular MP10 and I'll pre-order this cel-shaded one. I pre-ordered it in November of 2017. It was supposed to be out in December of 2017. As of the end of May in 2018, it still was not out. Now, I don't blame TF Direct for this. It's not them, it's the people who are manufacturing the figure and distributing it. For whatever reason, they kept pushing it back, and I just got tired of waiting. So I decided, why not? I will get the MPP-10. And my choices were basically the MPP-10, which is the more traditional Optimus Prime color scheme, or the MPP-10z, which is this one, which has a bit of difference to it, including some battle damage, which you can kind of see in the windows and stuff, and we'll see in more detail in a minute. The MPP-10z was on sale. It might still be on sale as of when this video gets posted. I will include a link in the description below if you want to check out the MPP-10z for yourself. But yeah, it was on sale, so it actually ended up costing less than the cel-shaded MP10 knockoff that I had pre-ordered. And since we're just going to launch into it at this point, it's got a better paint scheme. Not just the battle damage stuff, like the color scheme on the MPP-10z is far superior in my mind to the regular MPP-10. And that's because the regular MPP-10 has very deep saturated colors for the blues and the reds that make it look almost like it's made out of candy, I guess. It's just the colors were too bright and too saturated for my liking, and also it had a very glossy finish, and I wasn't a huge fan of that, whereas the MPP-10z has more of a matte finish and has slightly desaturated colors, which I think actually work a lot better. So I am all about this color scheme. And yes, this is basically the MP10 mold, so pretty much all the same stuff in terms of aesthetics except the paint. But yeah, I very much love this thing. It is fantastic, and it's so good to finally have an MP10 mold of a sort back in my collection, because it really is a fantastic figure in any way you can get it. I mean, it's Optimus Prime and it's a masterpiece, but not just because of that, just because it's an excellent figure. I feel like it's one of the few absolute must-haves for anyone who collects Transformers, because it's just so good. But anyway, I keep digressing. So, the MPP-10z, like I said, it's got the same color layouts as the regular MP10 and the MPP-10, where you've got, the blue in the back, the red in the front with that silver stripe, with some minor changes that I will get into, but I just really like the slightly muted color tones of this version of it, and also the fact that it doesn't have that high gloss finish. In terms of the molding, I mean, it's got all the same molded bits. As far as I can remember and am aware, there is no new molded detail on here. There is still plenty of nice molded detail, but I don't think any of it is new. But there is plenty on there. And if you're familiar with the MP10 mold, you are familiar with the molding on this thing, so you probably know what it all looks like. Even on the underside, it's got some nice molded detail in there, as well as a faux truck grille. But yeah, it's got some really nice molding. And then as for the actual paint, there is stuff on here that was not painted in the original MP10 from what I can remember. Things like the edge of the wheel well on the back here, these bits on the tops of the feet. I think the lights in here weren't painted either. This bit on the back wasn't painted. I've even tried to add like it's hard to tell, but it is there. They added like a very slight kind of charred smoke effect to the tops of the smokestack, so it kind of looks like they're slightly stained at the top. And then of course you've got the battle damage stuff, which they call battle damage. Really, I just think it makes it look, properly used and weather-worn, where you've got just like some scratching here and there in various parts all along the outside. It's a neat effect, and I like that they don't overdo it. And it makes the figure, the truck at least, seem like it's been used but not abused. But then of course you've got the cracks in the windshield, so I guess slightly abused. Just slightly. The only thing that kind of bums me out about this is this half of the decoration on the cab here, this little detail here, isn't painted as silver as this. I'm fine with the non-uniformity, but this really kind of needed to be continuous throughout. At least if it was, a little bit silver and then tapered off, then I think it would look better, but just having it split right down the middle like that is a little bit unfortunate. But then you've got other nice details like this crud in the grill in the front there, and it's great. It's really great. And they even painted red around the wheel well here, so it doesn't seem like it's as separate as it really is. Because you can kind of see the seams in there where it actually attaches. And then I don't remember if these bits were painted silver in the official one or not, but another nice detail that's called out. And I think these are steps right here. Those are nicely painted and detailed as well. Just lots of really good stuff here. The wheels have this weird kind of marbly, I think this is rubber. It's hard to tell. It's either soft plastic or rubber, but it's like this marbled kind of effect, which doesn't seem necessary, but I don't mind it. And then the hubcaps are painted and slightly stained. It's nice effects overall. The only thing that I've added myself is the repro label here for the Autobot logo. And the reason I did that is because he's got the spot there and it just looks weird not having anything there. And then as with the official MP-10 mold, you get the side mirrors and all that good stuff. And also the lights on top are painted, which is always, always great. Now here, the windshield is still slightly translucent, but it's actually got a kind of foggy, almost smoky effect going on, which if I could get this open. So by opening that up, you can kind of see, you can still see through it, but it is slightly smoky. And I like that because, you open this up and you've got the typical inside of the MP-10 where you've got these little bits here where a tiny figure can sit. And this guy does come with a tiny figure, but, not really huge on the accessories as per usual. But you've got all this robot junk on the inside, but when you close up the cab, you don't really see it because of that smoky plastic, so I do appreciate that a lot. The main thing with the MPP-10, and by extension the MPP-10z, is the fact that it is an upscaled knockoff. And anyone who's familiar with this knows what's coming, but when I say upscaled, I do mean upscaled. This thing is huge. It's I don't necessarily know that I'd call it twice the size of the regular MP-10, but it is very large and heavy too. Get this out of the way so that we can do more of a side-by-side. So here, this is just a heavy vehicle. And we'll put our Power of the Primes Deluxe on there, and yeah, it's a very, very large figure. So something to keep in mind. So that about does it for the truck mode. It is a very, just like the regular MP-10, it's a very, very classic Optimus Prime and works really well. And I particularly like just the paint scheme, the colors with this. It works really nicely. But the truck mode is only half of it. So let's take a look at that robot mode. Okay, that transformation is a bit more difficult to do when the figure is this large. Anyhow, there we have MPP-10z in robot mode, and it's Optimus Prime, and it looks so good. So good. I'm going to get into the goodness of the looks in a minute. Problem is, this figure's so big, I'm actually pulled back quite far from the setup, and it makes maneuvering around things a little bit difficult. So because of that, I'm actually going to get the size comparisons out of the way first, because it's just going to be easier if I can get that done and not have to maneuver around all of these lights. Anyway, let's get him off to the side here a little bit so that we can bring in our size comparisons. So like I said, he's very big. Here is the MPP-10z with a Power of the Primes Deluxe that barely comes up to his knee. Yeah. Again, not a surprise to anyone who's familiar with the MPP-10, but my goodness. Next, we have him next to Volcanicus, and as you can see, he's actually a bit taller than Volcanicus. So, yeah, taller than a Combiner Wars, or in this case, Power of the Primes Combiner. Alright, next thing, I'm gonna need to readjust this. It is surprisingly difficult to keep all of this in frame. Anyway, there we've got the MPP-10z with Cybertron Primus, and it's hard to tell from this angle, but he's just a tiny bit taller than Primus at the head. Just a tiny bit. Next up is, I need to readjust again, hang on. So, next up is what I consider a sort of a standard-sized Megazord. So you can see he is significantly taller than a Megazord. And last but by absolutely no means least, oh jeez, hang on. Okay, last but by no means least, the main reason why anyone would want to get an MPP-10. Here he is with Weijiang's Megamaster, their version of basically an oversized G1-inspired masterpiece Megatron. There is no denying that these two look fantastic together. I would quite possibly go out on a limb and say these two standing next to each other looks perfect. I mean, yeah, okay, Megamaster or Megatron isn't battle damaged like MPP-10 is. It would be nice if he had a little bit of a scuff thing going on to kind of match him. But overall, it just looks so good together. And here is also where I think those muted tones for the MPP-10z really, for lack of a better term, shine. Because those muted colors on the MPP-10z work a lot better with Megamaster than I think bright and shiny blues and reds would work. They just look so good together. I love this. Alright, I think that takes care of the size comparisons, so let's just get him back in the center there. And I am going to readjust the camera a bit so I don't have to stand so awkwardly far away. My apologies for being in this close. I normally try to keep the entire figure in frame the entire time I'm talking about it, unless I'm like zoomed in talking about details. But he's just so big. In order to comfortably talk about him, I really did need to bring him a bit closer. Sorry he's not really in frame from the shins down, but we'll take a look at those shins in a minute. But yeah, this is just fantastic looking. I mean, molding-wise, there's nothing new here that you haven't already seen on the MP-10. I will say there are some very small, what you could technically qualify as quality of life changes on this figure. Just little things like the front of the cab windows there, they tab in more securely than on the regular MP-10. This grille here tabs in more securely. The armature on the inside that has the entire torso swing out and up to go into truck mode has more secure tabbing on it. The bit on the inside that the truck grille is attached to actually clicks into place when you're going into vehicle mode, so it's a pretty solid connection there. The fuel canisters that go down on his calves, those also tab into place much more securely on his waist in vehicle mode. There's even like a very discernible click when you're telescoping the arms in and out for either truck mode or robot mode. So yeah, a little bit more solid in places, tabs together a little bit better in places, but overall the engineering, just like skeleton-wise, is exactly the same. Structurally, he does hold together a little bit better than the MP-10, but oh, this thing looks so good. It's hard to say this without sounding super hyperbolic, but this strikes me as perfection. I mean, the MP10 mold is fantastic on its own, but that blown up to this size with this slightly muted color palette with added paint details all over the place, I can't think of a particularly eloquent way to put it. It's just, for me, this is as perfect as a Transformer figure is going to get. I don't mean to say that it necessarily is perfect. There are little things about it that I'm sure will bother people. But for me, this is more or less a perfect Transformers figure. People have told me I should get the MPP-10 to go with Mega Master, and I was holding off because of that cel-shaded MP-10 figure, but I am glad I went with this, because the cel-shaded thing looked good. It did look really good, and it'd still be great to get my hands on it at some point, but at this point I'm probably never going to. But this just is amazing. And like with the truck, the robot mode has lots of little scuffs and nicks on it that ordinarily would probably be annoying, but here that's intentional, and I actually kind of like that because with all these scuffs and whatnot on it, if I do end up scuffing the figure more through transforming it or, posing it or whatever, it's just going to add to the detail. And I keep going on about details, I suppose we should look at them up close. So, let's start at the top and work our way down, shall we? A lot of the same details that you get here that were in the truck mode, just kind of reorganized. Like these bits were the sides of the truck cab, and now they're pointed forward as the shoulders. You still have the same truck cab windows there. Also, the MPP-10z has that really nice light blue for the eyes that really makes them seem alive. It's the same kind of blue that they used for the eyes in the Toys R Us version of the official MP-10, so I am totally into that. Also with the nice silver for the head crest, and just a really nice sculpt on the mouth plate. A little bit of scuffing around the edges of the helmet here, the ears, so to speak. It's such a good looking head. I mean, it's the MP10 head, so, it's the same deal, but it just looks so good. I really do love that slightly muted blue, and it all works really well with those really nice bright blue eyes and the silver in there. It's such a nice color combination. And moving on to the chest. Same detail as the truck cab. Here, the smoky plastic for the windows is a little bit less effective. I mean, it's still smoky, which is appreciated, but now you can totally see that matrix chamber in there, and that's kind of, I'm not super into that. Also here, you can get a much better idea of that smoky effect that they did on the smokestacks. That's really cool. All right, moving down to the midsection. Here we've got the faux grille that was underneath the truck, and doesn't have quite the same treatment as the proper truck grille, but it still looks suitably dinged up and dirty. And you also have some nice scuffing around the midsection there. And I'm pretty sure I said this with the MP10, but I really love how those wheel wells turn around and fold up to make his chest. That's a really neat transformation trick that works really well. Lots of nice kind of semi-damage detail also in the biceps and in the forearms here. You get some of that on the hands too. Now the pelvis area here, that's a little bit, I guess, one thing that I could call an imperfection. Let me bring this down a little bit more. Because you've got this really nice goldish yellow for these lines and the arrows in his forearms, which are, that classic Optimus Prime forearm detail. But here, it's like a dull Jolly Rancher look. And I kind of wish that these were done in the same color as these. I just think it may have been nicer if these were the same color. And for the thighs, they are gray, but they actually have this nice kind of like smoked effect on them that makes them look like they're a little bit dirty and obviously a little scuffed up. It's a subtle, kind of simple detail, but it works so well. I love how that's done throughout the figure. And onto the legs, same effect there. Now you've got some painted details on the insides, which is very nice. And I also like that these bits are painted. I do kind of wish that these bits that come down were also painted, because as it is, it's just kind of silver and then blue. Like, just making it go through like that would have been a nice detail to add, but it's okay. Then you got the silver vents, which also look a little bit streaky, which, again, I like. And then the feet, which look suitably scuffed up, and I like this added bit on the top there. Kind of add a little bit more visual interest. And the toes. And yeah, it's really, really nice. But, the back is actually pretty nicely detailed as well. Like the Little lights for the heels there. Not as much scuffing, or any scuffing really on the back of the legs, but you do get them on the backs of the thighs. And I like the asymmetry here, how one seems significantly more scuffed and smoked than the other one. And they even painted detail in the back here. And also you can see it on the backs of the forearms. Like, it's nothing major, but the inclusion of added painted bits on the back is very nice. And that added detail for the painted bits on the back is most apparent right here, where this used to be just straight red in the regular MP10 mold, but here you get this little bit of silver here and like this venting back here. The gun is painted up a little bit, and the rifle is the standard MP10 rifle. Does the thing. It's got a little bit of scuffing on it, and it's not bad. What I prefer to do is leave this folded up and tucked inside of his back because it's a little bit floppy and, you know, looks a little bit tiny in his hand when compared to this beast of a thing. This is some kind of bonus rifle that they decided to include for some reason, and it has a little bit of that silver scuffage going around and a flip down handle. I don't know why that's flipped down because there's really, I don't think this pegs in anywhere on him, but yeah, flip that down. There's a little button here. When you push the button, it glows very brightly. Very, very brightly, but that's cool. Even more than the light, I just love the size of this thing. Let me put it in his hand real quick. And there you can see him with the rifle, and that looks a lot better in his hand than this. Like, this isn't terrible. It's a neat idea, but if given the option, I'm using that. It doesn't really store in truck mode, but I don't care. This guy is fantastic, and if given the option, I'm going to give him a fantastic rifle. And I do believe that is going to do it for the MPP-10z. Again, very big figure, something to keep in mind, because as with Mega Master, he will not fit on one of my regular shelves. He basically has to sit in a more open spot in my collection because I just can't fit him on a shelf. Unless I put him with the Megazords, and that's just not how I organize my stuff. But that's enough carrying on about what I think. What do you all think of the MPP-10z? If you have the original Masterpiece MP10, is this like a paint scheme, color scheme that you'd be interested in seeing that come out in, or are you fine with what you've already got? If you have the regular MPP-10, what do you think of this color scheme as compared to the regular MPP-10 with the, like I said, more saturated reds and blues and more shiny finish? As far as size goes, is this something that you think is a little bit too big to bother with, or is this actually something you'd really love to get your hands on because it's so huge? And out of curiosity, would you prefer the default folded up blaster or the new oversized, can't fold up and can't really peg anywhere but has lights and is cool looking blaster? And I'm also curious, if you could potentially have Weijiang do an oversized knockoff of any other Masterpiece figures, what would you like to see them do? As excessive as it would be, I kind of think an oversized Masterpiece Ultra Magnus would be kind of fun. I mean, that thing would be absurdly enormous, but it'd be fun. Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And while you're at it, also feel free to like or subscribe. Any of those things would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art is more than meets the eye.